Today we are going to have a coffee with Lance Hitchings. Lance is a longevity biohacker and a longevity activist. Lance, at 60 years old in 2009, realized that something was not going as intended. Now he's 75 years old and is better than ever. In this episode, we will talk about simplicity, how everything started for Lance, reaching the Rejuvenation Olympics number 12. We will talk about goal settings, setbacks, and the importance of processes. With Lance, we will talk about stem cell therapy and how it worked for him. We will delve into the realm of supplements and what's the best for him, what is not. Now the coffee is quite ready, so without further ado, let's welcome Lance Hitchings. Enjoy.
Thanks, Lance, for being here today. So the reason why I reach out to you is because we hear many voices around the web, longevity, biohacking. I come mainly from biohacking and so on. But I met you, and I was really intrigued about the simplicity, or you are able to make complex topics into very simple words and transmit a sense of security. And I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to say right from the beginning that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher. I have no real scientific background or training. My career was in advertising and marketing. I was an art director and a creative director. And so, my authority, if you want to call it that, the thing that gives me the knowledge that I have is just simply the fact that, I'm 75 years old and I have been interested in longevity and have been pursuing longevity and longevity practices and a longevity lifestyle. And I've gotten some, what I think at least, are some pretty amazing results out of that pursuit. And I just decided I wanted to share that with people. So I don't pretend to be, a scientist or a doctor or anything like that. But, I've gotten pretty good results and I want to share those with people. And, I've listened to a lot of voices on the internet and other places. And the problem that I have when I'm listening to these voices is that a lot of people who are scientists and doctors and researchers tend to speak in a way that for the common man, for the layperson, it's really hard to understand, And so it was just, I just decided, I want to speak to people in a way that they can understand and explain some of these, complex concepts to them in a way that they can understand. And hopefully, they'll be able to implement the same practices or similar practices that I've implemented and get similar results.
Yeah, very good. You have a successful YouTube channel. We will link everything into the show notes. You are 75. You mentioned you are 75, and I'm curious because you started in another sector. When did you start and why into longevity? So what's your motivation behind your change or your switch? I don't know which age you change your mind or it's something switched.
Right. So I'll be honest, it was kind of a slow, long process for me. It started in 2009, and I was just about to turn 60. And I was going to my ex-wife's birthday party, which was on July 4th that year. And I was getting ready to go to her party, and I looked in the mirror, and she was turning 60. We were the same age. So she was turning 60 that day, and I knew that I was turning 60 the next month. And it was like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, I did not like what I saw looking back at me. I was vastly over. I weighed 270 pounds. So I was fat. I had no strength. I had no endurance. I had no stamina. My health, I didn't have very good health. You know, and I just realized, watching myself getting worse and worse and worse and worse for a long time, and it's time to do something about it. I'm 60 years old. If I don't do something about it now, I never will. Okay. And so it started out as just, you know, I was just trying to lose weight. That's all I was trying to do. And for about, I guess 8 or 9 years, that weight just kind of yo-yoed. It went up, and then it went back down. I lost it, and then it went up and back down. And it wasn't until probably about 2018 or 2019 that I kind of changed my approach, because my goal was to lose weight. Mm-hmm. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. And I'd lose the weight, and then I go, hey, I've achieved my goal. Now I can go back to living the lifestyle that I was living before. And as soon as I do that, it all come back on again. And so I realized that what I really needed to do was change my goals. And so I adopted a goal of changing my lifestyle. That was my goal. I'm going to change my lifestyle, because I knew that I needed to make these changes permanent. Yep. And that's kind of when it really started to make it a difference. And so when I started really seeing the effects of that different goal, and seeing, you know, how much change I brought about in myself, that kind of inspired me to want to share that with other people. And so when I started my YouTube channel, it wasn't really about longevity. It was about men's health. Mm-hmm. And in, you know, researching material to do videos on, I kind of just stumbled across longevity. Mm-hmm. And I started getting more and more and more into that. And gradually pretty rapidly, actually, it was probably a period of about 6 months. It went from being a men's health channel to a channel that was all about longevity.
That very, very good. And you touched a very important point. It's about goals, because we know about SMART goals, okay? But you mentioned a very good point, which is when you see a final end goal, which is not the process, is just a number or something, that this is something wrong, because you reached your number, your goal, which was mean goal, and then you did not have the mechanism of the process. So then you turn into having your process, which is the longevity lifestyle, being the goal. Ultimately, when you reach this, you have your framework. You proceed and you go this way. Yeah, that's very, very, very good point. I think this is very common. It happened to me as well, and it's very common. But I assume you have setbacks. So I think your challenges. So and how did you start, and what are the main challenges? We just to understand the main challenges someone may face when starting turning a lifestyle.
Sure. So the main challenge is that a longevity lifestyle is really hard. You know, in fact, I had a client just recently, you know, come to me after he'd been on my doing my course for a couple of weeks, and he said, "You didn't tell me this was going to be so hard." And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of did. You just weren't listening." Yeah, that's the biggest problem. And you know, as a result, I've fallen off the longevity wagon several times, and it's you know, there's that lure of my old lifestyle, the old way that I was doing things, that keeps kind of like wanting to pull me back. And sometimes, you know, things are going good, and that's pretty easy to resist. And then sometimes, you know, things are not going so well, and it can be very difficult to resist. And sometimes I found, for me, because I don't have a lot of discipline. That's some people have a ton of discipline, like Brian Johnson. You know, he's a longevity biohacker, and he's just got an iron will. I mean, he just, you know, and I don't have that kind of, I don't have that kind of willpower, you know. And so I've fallen off the longevity wagon several times. Here's the thing that is my saving grace, though. It's consistency. It's like, if you fall off the wagon, there's no reason to beat yourself up for falling off the wagon, because it's something that almost everybody does, except Brian Johnson. The thing that is going to make the difference is that you get back on the wagon again. You know, stumbling and falling and is just inevitable. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody. Everybody has obstacles. Everybody has things that get in their way. Everybody falls off the wagon. That's just, life. The thing that makes a difference is that every time you do that, you go, okay, I'm going to get back on the wagon again. And you get back on the wagon again. You start doing the exercise and you start paying more attention to your diet. And, to me, that's the thing that makes a difference is it doesn't matter how many times I fall off the wagon. Every time I get back on again.
That's the point, because we are human after all, and basically we need to expect something like that to occur, because life is life. So, for instance, in my case, where I have peak of stressful periods, external stressors due to a work or family or something like that,
sure.
And this on top of the lifestyle, which is not really relax, rest and relax. So it's hard. And then I face also this domino effect. So when I was failing one of the pieces in the lifestyle, then I was just, everything was falling down. So it was like, okay, I had this chips, I don't know, something like this. And so, okay, I don't do this. So the important thing is to keep being back. And a question about support, because talking about communities, I know that there are many communities now. Many are linked to Brian Johnson's Zero Community, and I'm part of many communities, including biohacking, meetups, etc. But do you think the communities are helping people, and are giving some accountability, or did you have anyone at the beginning helping you? Yeah,
that's a great question. Yeah, I absolutely think that community makes all the difference. It can make all the difference. This can be really hard to do by yourself. And believe me, I know, because I don't really have much of a support community. I've pretty much done it by myself. And so I know just how hard it is to do it by yourself. And so having a community of people who you can talk to, you can go to when you've fallen off the wagon and you need a little help getting back on, that makes a lot of difference. So yeah.
This is a point that for the listeners that they need, I think, joining any community, having this accountability partner, and that this may help. You touched a little bit about, we're talking about Brian Johnson and his you talk about consistency, but is mainly willpower, or extreme willpower, more robotic than human, basically. Do you think that willpower is a factor, and how hard is to keep what you are doing when you do in the social life? Because when you have a lifestyle like longevity lifestyle, then we will go deeper into what does it mean, but then you need to interact with people, with human, so social people. So how do you think that you face this willpower versus social life in your experience?
Well, everybody's got a different approach to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, Brian Johnson's got, kind of an iron discipline that I just don't possess. And so for me, I try not to beat myself up. I make it okay if, occasionally when I go out and interact with other people, it's okay for me. I make it okay for me to occasionally, have a drink or to eat something that's not on my regular routine. And I just kind of look at it as like a cheat day. It's, because I know that this is kind of a one-off. It's something that happens pretty rarely. And, the way I look at it is that if it happens rarely, it's not going to have that big of an impact on me. Here's the problem, though. Here's the issue with that, is that it's really easy to slip from doing it rarely and every once in a while to doing it all the time. It's kind of like if you're an alcoholic and you have a drink and one drink turns into 10 and, it becomes a problem. So you have to be on the lookout for that kind of behavior. In general, my approach is that it's okay to have an occasional cheat day. I kind of look at them as rewards. It's kind of like, you've been good for a month now. Now you're going to have this thing that you love to eat that's, is not good for you, but it's kind of a reward for good behavior. So,
That
No.
this is this interesting is one approach, but it depends on people, the person. I mean, how to manage this, because of course you are aware and responsible of the present. You don't know what is going on tomorrow. So if tomorrow there is a birthday cake in the office, and then there will be, and then you know, okay, the day after you don't know, but if the day after you have, I don't know, someone else inviting you for some, so it's very risky in this point, because sooner or later you need you have to say no, stop. If not, you just derail. And your routine and most recent one, and again, then we will talk what has changed and the major changes from the past. Just
Well, it's ever evolving. It's a process. We were talking earlier about goals and kind of having this end goal. And for me, you never get to the end goal. It's always a process. It's always ongoing. And one of the reasons for that is because there's new discoveries. The science moves. It's a moving target, and they're always discovering new things. And I'll read about something that has just been newly discovered and go, oh, that's kind of cool. I need to incorporate that into my lifestyle. And so I make some changes to accomplish that. So it's a moving target, and it's always evolving. So that's
okay.
I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
no, yeah. I mean, more practically, because I'm curious to know more practically as what. But you're right in one point, because remember, I like when people are also changing their mind, because the internet, or when you write a book, for instance, it is static. So it does remain there.
Right.
Internet, you have YouTube channels, you have videos that are in the past, in present, and will be in the future. So, but you may see something that is outdated, or something that you maybe don't believe anymore, or there is new science that. So, changing your mind in this field, I think, is reasonable based on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's also the factor that a lot of the changes that I make are in response to how my body's reacting to what I'm already doing. So I get tested a lot. I do all kinds of tests, and I check in, on a pretty frequent basis to see how I'm doing. And sometimes, it's like, oh, I was doing this to fix this, but this isn't really getting fixed. I need to change it up. I need to do something different if I really want to fix this or optimize it. And so I'll adjust my plan to kind of take that into consideration. So it's not just the science that's changing. It's also paying attention to my body and what's going on in my body and making adjustments because something's working or something's not working.
Yeah, perfect. And the body's changing over time as well. So there is something that is working when in the 20s, 30s may not work in the 70s, and so this is important.
Yeah, for sure.
And what kind of, in terms of testing, you mentioned that roughly, I assume you do blood work. What kind of testing you do regularly?
Yeah. So right now I'm doing, there's an organization here in the States called Life Extension. It's a Life Extension Foundation, and they offer a lot of supplements, but they also offer a lot of tests. And so that's kind of who I go to get my blood tests. And it's a pretty comprehensive panel of tests. And I do that about every 6 months. I also go to True Diagnostic. They do an epigenetic aging test, and but they do a lot more. I've done a lot of different epigenetic aging tests. In fact, I did a video where I think I test drove about 6 different epigenetic aging tests. And True Diagnostics is really kind of, in my opinion, head and shoulders above the rest, because they offer so many different reports on what's going on in your body. It's really comprehensive. I do, there's a company called Genfinity, and they do senescent cell testing, and they test for your NAD+ levels. So I do that just, to see where that is. I also do I do VO2 max testing. I get occasionally, about once a year, I get a DEXA scan to see what my body fat percentage is and my muscle mass. I do what's called an in-body scan, which is basically it's a very different way of measuring, but it measures kind of the same stuff, and it's much less expensive. So I do that on kind of on a monthly basis, just to kind of see where that's going on. I mean, just off the top of my head, that's a lot of the tests that I do. So you know, there's a lot of different things going on, and a lot of different tests that measure these different things, and so you kind of have to seek them out and figure out which things you want to test and who does that, and
yeah, because not everyone can, I mean, do this kind of tests regularly. So that I assume some of them are very expensive, some other are less expensive. So I think in terms of blood work, blood exams. So what do you think are the big ones in terms of longevity linked to the one that you are under control under your radar reference to longevity?
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, you know, so I look at hormones to see what my testosterone level is, my free testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, cortisol. I look at those. Growth, human growth hormone. I look at my immune system. So I get, like it's basophils and neutrophils and all the different, white blood cells, all those, what those levels are doing, blood, like what the blood work is, like the red blood cells, apoprotein A and B. I look at C-reactive protein. I get my blood work back, and it's like a 6-page report.
Yeah, and you track everything over time, right? And then,
I do. I build out a spreadsheet, and I put in the date and all the results, and then I look at because that's kind of really the most important part. Is it's not so much what's happening at one moment in time; it's how it's trending.
Yeah.
And so if you can look at like I've got 5 years of blood tests now, and I can see how things are trending, and if something is just slowly creeping up, getting it tested one time, it might still be in the optimal range. But if I look at the last 6 tests and see that each time it's getting a little bit higher and a little bit higher and a little bit higher, it might still be optimal, but I can see, it's going up. I need to get that back down again.
And again, coming back to your routine and what you do practically, about reference to Pareto principle. So what do you think 80-20 principle? So the 20% you do that is giving the 80% of results. So the big rocks someone has to take to start. So because you mentioned tests, a lot of tests, then intervention, there are many things that someone can do. But I think that in your experience,
exercise,
yeah, the first thing. First off.
Absolutely. I mean, so let me just say this. I'm a firm believer in doing all the things. You got to do everything that you can, because if you ignore one thing and it gets really bad, that's the thing that's going to kill you. That's the thing that's going to put you in the grave. So you got to do all the things. Having said that, the biggest bang for the buck, in my opinion, is exercise. And the way my approach to exercise is that there are 3 types of exercise you need to do. You need to do mobility training because you need to keep your flexibility up, your mobility up. Loss of mobility is one of the biggest risk factors for all-cause mortality in older individuals. So, and that's kind of the one that gets ignored the most. Most people don't put a lot of energy into their mobility. So that's kind of why I mentioned it first. You need to do strength training. Strength training will, defeat sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass. It'll defeat osteopenia, which eventually will become osteoporosis. And it will also increase your mobility, because you need the strength to pull those joints through their full range of motion. I also do a lot of cardio. Cardio, among other things, it's great for losing weight, especially high intensity interval training. It's also, it boosts the cardiovascular system, and cardiovascular disease is really the #1 killer, of everybody across the world. And so if you can improve your cardiovascular health, that's going to make a huge difference in your longevity. I do both steady state cardio and I do high intensity interval training, which are two very different types of exercise, but they each have a benefit that the other does not have. In fact, that's true of all the types of exercise I've mentioned. They each have certain benefits that they bring that the others don't have. And they also have benefits that they bring that no other, supplements won't bring it, nutrition won't bring it. I know a lot of people really don't like to exercise, but if you want to live a long time, that's the one thing that you really, really need to do. And I also want to say this. I bring a lot of intensity, I guess, to my exercise. I mean, like I have a lot of people that I coach that are working out, but they only work out 1 or 2 days a week and they don't work out that hard. And it's like, no, you got to work out. You got to do something every day. And you need to work out hard. You need to be out of breath. You need to be panting. You need to be huffing and puffing. You need to be breaking out of sweat. I mean, like it needs to be just pouring off your body. You need to bring up a lot of intensity to your exercise to get the kind of changes that exercise can bring. There's, every other longevity strategy that I know of, there's like, it's kind of like either you're doing it or you're not doing it. And if you're doing it, you're getting the benefit. And if you're not, you're not. Exercise is not just that. It's like how much you do or how much intensity you bring to it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I've read numerous reports that say that there is continued benefits, added benefits. The more exercise you do, the more hours you do a week, the more benefits you'll get. And that the cutoff for that is about, I think I read it was like 22 hours or something like that. So and I'll admit, I don't do 22 hours of exercise. I don't, other than elite athletes, I don't know anybody who does. But still, the point is that the more exercise you do, the more benefits you'll get up to about 22 hours a week. So, that really says to me that, it's almost impossible to do enough exercise.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you over exercise, the risk is to give too much, but yeah.
And you have to be smart about it. I mean, if you have not exercised and you're just starting out, take it easy, take baby steps, start out with something that's not that challenging, because if you're just starting out, the thing that you want to do is you want to develop consistency. You want to be able to get into the habit of exercising. And what exercising you're doing isn't nearly as important as getting into the habit. And then as you become used to doing it, then start upping it and making it more and more challenging.
Do you measure do you have any indicator for recovery, like HRV or something like this?
I wear a Whoop, which is I actually lost it at the festival I was at this weekend. So I need to get a new one. But that's Oura Rings, Apple Watch. I mean, there's a lot of different Fitbit. There's a lot of different devices that will record HRV. I just happen to use the Whoop, but I think that's important. It's not the end all be all. And I've read a lot of literature, that's kind of bringing HRV into question about how important it really is. So it's just, it's one of the things that I keep track of. But in my experience, when it says that, my HRV is down and I'm not that recovered, that pretty much is in alignment with how I'm feeling in my body. So, I believe in it.
Same. If the accuracy is good, it's still an indicator of a physiological stress, recovery. So we need to pay attention eventually, not to exceed the overstress the body. This is important. I fully agree with the first point you mentioned it about exercise, because that there is still a head-to-head with diet, nutrition. Nutrition, exercise are here. But I fully agree. In the recent years, I think also Peter Attia changed his mind that from the beginning was first diet, then exercise. Now I exercise and then diet. But the good thing, but this is linked to your client at the beginning. There are many people that think that supplements are the first thing. So it should be the last, I like to say. So supplementing something that you're already doing. But of course, it's not hard. I mean, it's easier to take a supplement than doing hard exercise.
Yeah. I read about different supplements that kind of mimic the effects of exercise. But the thing is, they don't mimic all the effects. They mimic one effect. And so I get that people would rather take a pill than go out and exercise and break a sweat. But you know, that pill might bring one or two benefits, whereas exercise, I mean, you know, in my opinion, it literally brings, I don't know, maybe not hundreds, but a huge number of benefits that supplements just not going to mimic.
Nutrition. So do you have any specific way of eating, or you follow something, or just what's your philosophy or your approach to nutrition?
Yeah, my approach is whole foods. You know, stay away from anything that's processed or refined, anything that's, you know, grown or manufactured in a factory environment. Yeah, in my opinion, if you can afford to eat organic, that's the path you should follow. Mm-hmm. You know, all my meals, I make them from scratch. You know, I there's a few things that I get that are refined or processed, but they're still kind of organic. They're still minimally processed. So that's my number one rule is just, you know, stay away from, you know, any foods that have been pre-prepared or pre-packaged or, you know, highly refined or highly processed, have a lot of additives added to them, like preservatives and artificial foods or artificial colors and flavorings. Just, you know.
Yeah, so it's back to the basic, like the gram food. I mean,
yeah.
That's really interesting. Then I was looking into what you do. I was really curious. I talk about some other things, like maybe we can touch base with methylene blue and other stuff like the red light therapy. You see, I have the red light here still turn on. Also with Aubrey de Grey in my last podcast. But you did some stem cell therapy and plasmapheresis. Can you explain first thing what is that, in particular plasmapheresis, and why you did it, and what are the advantages in?
Well, you know, do you want me to take them like one at a time, explain like stem cell therapy? Okay, yeah. So, So first off, I just want to say I was very, very fortunate in that a clinic that does stem cell therapy contacted me and wanted me to do some work for them. They had a bunch of, you know, like new doctors coming into the clinic, and they learned nothing about nutrition or longevity or you know, that kind of medicine in med school. And so they wanted me to kind of create a curriculum of material that when they came into the clinic, they could watch it and kind of get up to speed. And so kind of in exchange for doing that, they offered me stem cell therapy. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. I flew down to Costa Rica to get the stem cell therapy done. And honestly, I got to be honest with you. I was not expecting that big of a change. I didn't expect it to have as much of an impact on my health and my life as it did. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. Now, I also did plasmapheresis and plasma. So stem cell therapy is, you know, they just simply, there's several different ways they can do it. They can extract stem cells from your own body, multiply them, and then put them back in. You can also get stem cells that have been taken from like umbilical cords, that kind of like mesenchymal stem cells. So there's several different procedures or ways of collecting them. The one that I went to, they did both, and they're right next to like Costa Rica's largest hospital, and so they literally, you know, like were there when somebody gave birth, collected the umbilical cords, walked them back over to their lab, and extracted them. And most stem cell therapy clinics, I believe, get their stem cells from a lab somewhere, and stem cells don't stand up very well to shipping, and so the viability rate goes way down. So having access to that kind of source was really kind of a game changer, I think. Then they did the plasmapheresis, which they basically extracted plasma from my blood, and then replaced it with saline solution with some albumin, which is a protein, added to it. And basically what that does is that, if you think of like a fish tank where you get an aquarium or a fish tank with clean water in it and fish, and you never clean it out, the water just gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier until the fish die. And that's kind of what's going on in our systems. So there's no outlet. I mean, I realize that the kidneys kind of filter the blood and the liver as well, but to some extent, it's a closed system, and so there's no way for a lot of these things to get out. Mm-hmm. And so, what the plasmapheresis does is kind of like changing your oil, because I saw the plasma that came out, and it was a little gross looking, and so they replace it with clean saline solution with some albumin added. And it's just kind of like a freshening, like I said, like changing your oil or something like that. And I had both the stem cell therapy and the plasmapheresis done within the same visit. And so I don't know which of those procedures was most responsible for the changes that I experienced. But, I came back from the first procedure, and just like everything was different. I felt I had more energy. My athletic performance took a big boost. I was able to turn in faster times, longer times. I could work out harder and stronger. Some of the effects took place, I mean, like literally almost immediately. I mean, like within a day or two. And some of them took a little bit longer, like up to a month to kick in. And they lasted for, quite a while. Some of them started to fade after about 6 months to a year. Some of them have not faded at all. Some of them are still, like I did the first one 2 years ago, and some of the things I experienced are still expressing themselves. So I went the second time and had some other procedures done. I had a facial treatment done, which honestly, that one I expected to get nothing from. I really was very skeptical about the facial treatment. And I had a lot of like crepey skin. So if you're an older person, you understand what it's like to have crepey skin on your neck. And that went away. And I did that a little over a year ago, and it still has not returned.
But this is again injecting. I mean, this with the stem cell again in localized.
That was the stem cells, yes.
Localized. Okay.
Yep.
Topical. Okay. I like.
Yeah. Okay. I also, as a guy who's 75 years old, one of the things that I suffer from is erectile dysfunction, and so it's I've talked a lot about ED on my channel. I've talked about a lot of different cures, or not cures so much, but treatments or ways to deal with it. And I've tried a lot of different things. And when I went down to RMI and had their ED procedure done, that made a difference. That really made a difference. I expected that one to work. I just was surprised by how well it worked.
I don't know the cost, but because you had this opportunity, but and the accessibility, because you mentioned you had to go to Costa Rica. And honestly, I don't know in Europe what's the situation where you can do this, if you can do it. I don't know. This is interesting to dive deep a little bit for those who are interested. These are the treatments that are available. And and then you have results. Okay, this is again n equal 1 experience again, but there are many things that are universally applicable. Okay, so I've seen your videos about methylene blue and red light, and there was about the red light you mentioned at the beginning. You had no red light. Did you get one?
No, they're honestly, they're a little bit outside of my budget.
Yeah.
So my experience with red light therapy is kind of from literature. what I know about red light therapy is from studies that I've read, from talking to people who have done red light therapy. I can't speak from experience in that area because I haven't done red light therapy, because quite honestly, it's kind of a little bit outside my budget. Same thing for like hyperbaric oxygen chambers. You know, I'm preparing a video on HBOT, and again, it's not something I've done. I've talked to a lot of people who have done HBOT. I have some clients who have done HBOT, so I know what their experiences are, but I don't have any personal experience with that kind of stuff. Now I have done methylene blue because it's really inexpensive.
Yeah, what's your feedback? I do it regularly, every 3 times per week.
Yeah. I like it. You know, every time I do it, I get like kind of a little boost in energy, and my cognition. I think it affects the cognition as well. You know, it just things seem a little clearer. So if I'm going to do something where I'm like today, you know, for this interview, one of the things I did in preparation for this interview was take some methylene blue. It just makes me a little bit sharper, a little bit more, you know, in touch.
Yeah, same. And you know that because they cross the blood-brain barrier, and then in conjunction with the red light therapy is also synergistic effect. Very interesting. And I was really curious, and I linked the videos from red light therapy you did and methylene blue, and in the show notes. And in the methylene blue, I was really curious because it's very a long history, and was, I think, the first drug patented to treat malaria, something like this. It's a long history, and it's strange that was used for genes. I mean, and recently someone interviewing Brian Johnson, he mentioned about methylene blue. Brian Johnson replied that he was thinking about, I don't know now. So very, very, very interesting. So is there anything else you want to cover in this moment in time, and what's going on over these different studies? For instance, there is a recent study about interleukin 11.
If there was, you know, it would probably be some sort of supplement. I mean, you know, there's a lot of supplements. I mean, there's so many supplements. You know, I think that like taurine is a good supplement to take. Glynac. You know, I was just watching a video with Rhonda Patrick where she was talking about omega-3 and how important omega-3s are, and I agree with that. Most of the people that I'm aware of who are really into this kind of longevity lifestyle are just taking like a fistful of supplements every day. That's probably, they're probably spending more money on supplements than just about anything else.
You don't see, but I have plenty of supplements. I have a cabinet full of supplements.
Me too.
Of course, I'm not taking everything at the same time, and just
right. And a lot of them I cycle. A lot of them, you know, some of them I'm cycling maybe every week. Some of them I'm cycling every month. Some of them I'm cycling like every 6 months. So
some of them are more longevity. Some more are more cognitive function. But you mentioned taurine, which is linked also. Okay, we have studies, and you made a video, I think, as well. Glynac for I assume for glutathione and all the benefits.
Exactly.
Creatine is also.
Creatine is a huge one. It's one of the few supplements that is. I mean, creatine is really, really well studied, and it's one of the few supplements where they have. It's like, this will make a difference. This will make you better. You know, it's great for performance, but it's also a really good neurotropic. It's got great cognitive function. So, creatine is way high on my list of supplements.
Same. What do you think about berberine? Are you taking berberine?
I'm not at the moment. I've taken it in the past. I actually like berberine. I like it better than metformin. Mm-hmm. They do, you know, they have a kind of a similar function in that they control blood sugar. I did not do well on metformin. And the biggest, I mean, you know, it caused some stomach upset, which is pretty common, but it also kind of interfered with my performance. When I was taking metformin, I could tell that my performance when I was working out was down. And, you know, I was on it for several months, and I finally decided, you know, I'm not going to take it anymore. And I quit taking it. And like within less than a week, my performance was back where it was. So
if there is a problem between anabolic catabolic, so generally, just we are thinking generally, all the supplement and also calorie restriction, all the intervention that are targeting MPK versus mTOR, so the two antagonists, that just simplifying a lot, which is you push more catabolic. Also, the recent study, the one about interleukin 11, that is basically if you suppress the anabolic, yes, this is linked to living longer, but of course there should be a balance, because if you too much of this, then
I personally, I feel like, you know, there was this movement, you know, like it's like a pendulum, right? It's over here and then it swings way over to the other side. If you're talking about like the mTOR pathway and that kind of stuff, obviously for hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but for, you know, decades, you know, Western society has had nutrients have been in excess. We've had more than enough nutrients. And the human body, in fact, all of biology, all animals evolved to kind of deal in a fast and famine kind of a feast and famine kind of environment, where nutrients would be plenty and then they'd be scarce, and then they'd be plenty and then they'd be scarce. And we evolved in a way to take advantage of both of those states. You know, eventually got to the point where we were just in feast all the time. And so there was this movement to kind of go restrict calories and move away from that and get more into a catabolic kind of a state, which I think is good and was needed. But it's like, you can't just live exclusively in that state either. It needs to be both. So that's
do you do calorie restriction or intermittent fasting or anything like this?
Oh yeah. I've been doing intermittent fasting for that's probably one of the longest things I've been doing. I've been doing intermittent fasting almost since I started losing weight back in 2009.
Like I don't know, 16/8 or something.
You know, I started out doing 16/8. Now I'm doing more like it's actually getting a little extreme for me. I'm probably more like 24 or 19/5, something like that.
Something like a 1 meal a day. Of course, if you do 15/9, I guess it's not the end of the world, but
right.
Yeah, but it's basically 1 meal a day, and which is okay.
I tend to work out in a fasted state. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what I do. It has more to do with my routine and you know, when I work out and when I eat.
This is a full conversation and a lot of hypotheses and really personal. The important thing is to work out first thing. So you need to do it. Perfect. Very good conversation. If there is nothing else you want like to cover now, how can our listeners reach out to you? I know that you have this longevity introduction course, and just tell us more about what you do and your. So
So I have a website. It's just my name, lancehitchings.com. You know, if you went to lancehitchings.com right now, there is just a template that's kind of a placeholder. I'm in the process of building out my website, but it's literally going to be launching within the next probably 2 or 3 days. So if you just go to that website, and there's a ton of information there about the longevity course. You can purchase the course on my website. I do longevity coaching, and you can book a phone call from my website to talk to me about if you want me as a longevity coach. So that would be probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, or watch my YouTube channel. Again, just Lance Hitchings.
I will link everything into the show note, including the new site. If you have any special discount for listeners for your longevity course, we will post that as well in the show notes. And I think that's all from my side. Anything else from you?
No, I can't think of anything. I mean, longevity is something I could go on and talk about forever. So there's always a ton more to say. But I think we've done a pretty good job of covering it.
So continue the work. Invite the listeners to follow you on YouTube, which is very, very, very interesting, and the way you explain things is very easy for the majority. So again, thank you for your time, Lance, and we will be in touch.
Okay, thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Did you like this episode? If so, simply subscribe, thumbs up, and click on the notification bell not to lose any opportunity in the future. And remember, sharing is caring, even for a coffee. Even better. Till next time, see you soon.